Father in heaven, we pause before you again this morning. We thank you for the children that you have blessed us with here at church. And God, we just thank you and praise you for them. I pray that your blessing would rest upon them as they go downstairs and spend time with their teachers. And I pray that you would bless the teachers, Martha and Teresa, as they lead out in teaching the children. I also pray for John here this morning as he leads out, and I pray that you would bless him and with words. I pray that you would bless him and fill him and allow your spirit to rest upon him and share what you have laid on his heart. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good morning. It's funny that Brian should pray that the Lord bless me with words, because I wish I could just take the thoughts and the things that I feel and just impart them to you and somehow communicate it clearly, because there's plenty in here, but how to get it from here to here and from here to here in an organized fashion is another thing. Anyway, to go back and to start kind of in the beginning a little bit, lay a little bit of groundwork, I want to talk about the ultimate lie. What is the core lie of the enemy? What is it? Isaiah 14 talks about the fall from heaven of O Day Star, which is, Lucifer means morning star or bright star. In the ESV it says O Day Star, son of dawn. How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. And there's a pride aspect in there, but first, the day star, the bright and glorious angel, perhaps the most beautiful one. I don't know that the whole comparison thing is a thing that gets us in trouble, so I don't want to go too much on comparing which one is more beautiful or whatever, because that's where we get in trouble, is we compare ourselves amongst ourselves, and we always find that we're not enough. And I think possibly that was the core lie that Satan himself bought into, is there's more. God is holding out on me. There's the key part. God is not to be trusted. He's holding out on me, and I could be more. He first had to believe he could be more for him to want to be like the Most High, to ascend, to go for more. And that's what when you go to Eden and Adam and Eve in the garden, Genesis 3, that's the core lie that he comes with. Did God really say? Did God really say? They had, like Lucifer before the fall, they had everything they needed. They were whole, perfect, complete, innocent, and at peace, at rest. Right? There was nothing more. God was not holding out on them. Everything they needed, there was a journey to be had, but everything they needed, and they were perfect in that place and time. It was all there. But did God really say? Let's start casting doubt on what God said, because he knows that if you eat of the fruit, you won't die. There's a lie. If you don't die, You won't die. In fact, you will be like God, become like God, in that you will know good and evil. And so right there, there's more, and God is holding out on you. And you're not enough. You could be more. You could ascend. And they bought the lie. And as soon as they ate of the fruit, what was their conclusion? We are not enough. Because they saw that they were naked, they went and they hid themselves. And the Lord said, who told you? Who told you that? I didn't say that. I didn't say that you're inadequate or incomplete or not enough or naked. I didn't say that. When God was finished with creation, he said, he saw on the last, each day he said God saw that it was good, and on the last day he saw that it was very good because it was complete. But they bought into the lie, and then the first thing they did when they looked in the mirror was, we are not enough. And they hid, and they closed themselves, and they tried to become better. Whatever. That's not where I'm going to camp, but that's where we bought into the separation worldview. I'm using the model of the separation worldview and the connection worldview from Jamie Winship. And that's where they bought into the separation worldview. And by nature, that is our default from that day forward for humanity. All of us, when things happen to us in life, our default, our bias, the way we seek to go interpret the world is separation. And bad things do happen to us. Painful things happen to us. People betray us. We betray each other. Bad things happen. Those are facts. We fall, there's, whether it's heights or like physical things, or whether it's a broken world and whether it's broken humanity, or whether it's whatever. It can be anything. It can be anything. There's lots and lots and lots of things that can go wrong, and those are facts in a fallen world. But the way we receive and interpret those, and the meaning we ascribe to them, by default is not true. Because by default, we say, because I fear this, every decision, every choice we make in the separation worldview is motivated by fear. And when we are motivated by fear, and we don't want those bad things to happen to us, we seek to find ways to create and have a manageable life that is comfortable and safe, and to minimize those things to the extent we possibly can, because we're afraid of those things. And so that's the way we choose to try to manage it. We accept it as true. It's all a lie. The whole thing is a lie. The whole separation worldview is a lie. You actually can't separate from God. I mean, we can live that way. We can buy into the lie, but God doesn't separate. He is present. Even, recently in working through this, I see Cain differently than I used to. Not in that he had a good outcome, but the way the Lord related to him. Like, even when Cain left, so he killed Abel, God is talking to him that whole time. Sin lies at the door. He's warning him. And then he comes back to him and says, your brother's blood cries to me from the earth. What have you done? And then Cain says, surely the people are going to kill me. Why would they? It was family. It was Abel's family. It was his family. And anyway, he says, they're going to kill me. And the Lord says, what does the Lord do? He puts a mark on him. He says, no, Cain, I'm going to put a mark on you. My hand is on you, in essence, so that they will know that nobody will kill you. My mark is on you. But that's still not, and Cain still seeks to separate. He never seems to turn and accept God's presence. But the Lord puts the mark on him, so everywhere Cain goes, people can still see the mark of the Lord. And he was not to be killed. Like the Lord doesn't separate. Cain kept separating, living into the lie. We never read anything different, and he's given in the New Testament as not the kind of person you want to be. But the Lord never, it wasn't God's choice. And anyway, so the idea that we can even separate it's all a lie. We accept it as true, and we strive to create our own little manageable worlds. But to believe and live in that worldview requires disbelief. We look for others who are enough. So this is the way we manage it. We want certainty, and one of the ways to do that is to build empires. So we find enough people that think like I do to get a big enough group around me that thinks like I do so that I feel safe. Because now there's enough of us that maybe they'll leave us alone, or maybe we can overpower them, or maybe we can conquer them, or maybe we can win them over, or whatever. But there's enough of us that I feel reasonably safe, because I feel safe amongst you all. I don't think you're going to come get me. And we build our tribes, and we are created for relationships. So let's not misconstrue that. We'll get there. But empire building is different. It's still us trying to find a way to create a little world where I'm comfortable enough that I can manage and I don't have to deal with too many of these things, these scary things. Okay? But when we choose to live like that, first of all, if we're living out of fear, it blocks the voice of God in our lives. When I'm filled with fear, I can't hear the Lord in that area. Because if I'm letting the fear win, if I'm saying this is true, I'm not enough, God is not really here, that's really what I'm saying. He's not going to come through for me. Whatever the case might be, there's not enough. We can't do that. We don't have enough resources. Whatever the case might be, and when I live out of that fear, I cannot hear the voice of the Lord in that, because, in essence, I'm saying, "No, Lord, I don't know what option you have, but it's not acceptable." Because I can tell that this is not going to work. It's not realistic. When we choose to live like that, we can't hear the voice of the Lord in those areas of our lives, and we're not where we let fear dominate, and we're not looking to solve problems or set the world right, because, number one, it's too scary, too big, it's impossible, we can't, or I just don't want to, whatever. I don't want to face that. I don't want to deal with that. I'm comfortable. I'm good, thanks. Why couldn't the Israelites who left Egypt, that generation that left Egypt, why couldn't they enter the promised land? Who wants to shout it out? Unbelief. Hebrews 3, they couldn't enter because of their unbelief. And that's what, when we are controlled and motivated by fear, that is ultimately what it comes back to, is unbelief. We don't believe based on how we've interpreted, whether it's something in the past that's being triggered, or whether it's something in the present, or whatever. When we let fear set the narrative, when we buy into the separation worldview, that's really what we're saying. God is not big enough for this. Whatever the case might be. Whether we think it's just not realistic, whatever. We've just written off that God, He's just not big enough for that, and He's not going to be present, He's not going to be there, He's not going to come through, whatever. That's what it requires. Ultimately, it comes back to I'm not enough. He doesn't really actually care about me. He's not with me. I'm not going to be taken care of. I'm not enough. And it becomes this fight for survival and somehow manage, and it leads to a lot of stress and despair. We all deal with this, every single one of us. What are some of the things, asking ourselves to entertain these questions, this is what I asked myself, what are the things that I face that tend to lock me up? That's what I'm spending time, or I want to spend time to journey through this, what are the things that tend to lock me up? There are moments when I can just kind of freeze up, I don't know, I couldn't actually think of it just this weekend spot on, but you put me in that moment, it'll surface all right. I know if you put me in that spot that I described earlier, where it's supposed to be a negotiation meeting and the leader says, let's just execute these people and be done with it, that would have put me in one of those spots. My blood pressure went, poof, and the hair on the back of my neck would have stood on end, I can assure you. I don't know what my next move would be, but it would have. What creates anxiety for me? What pushes me out of my comfort zone? It could be as simple as talking to a stranger. It could be breaking the ice in something. It could be little things. It just depends what's going on, what the context is. But sometimes for me, I work in financial services as an advisor, and especially, it still happens sometimes, but especially in the early years, it was something that, and it's very common in not just in advisors, but in any field, we often struggle with imposter syndrome, where we think that we're not good enough ultimately, but I don't know enough. Well, we don't know everything, right? So we're still learning. Well, that's true of anybody. But we think that somehow we're worse than anyone else, and so we always and we get this imposter syndrome. And we do right to know that we don't know everything. We need to keep learning and growing and sharpening our saw and all that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not good enough, and that I'm not capable, and that don't have the resources, because there's others around. You can ask, you can, whatever the case might be. But it's easy to struggle with that in professional circles. It's something that we talk about sometimes. The things that push me out of my comfort zone. What doesn't fit my little world? What disrupts my comfort? My routines, whatever. What are some of those things? Those are questions that I've been grappling with. Now, I don't know how the transition is going to go here, but we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 2. And it's kind of funny a little bit, because the way I got to this passage is verse 3, as I was thinking about, how's this all going to go? How am I going to pull this together? And I don't even know how I came across, but this verse is what I came across. And I was with you in weakness and fear and much trembling. That's Paul talking to the Corinthians, and that's me talking to you. In weakness, I don't have it together, okay? It's me on a journey. And you're hearing that in a very unpolished way. And that's verse 3. So I'm going to start in verse 1 and read the first 5 once. We'll just see how this goes. There's a couple things that I want to pull out. Maybe I might just read the whole thing and then come back to a few of them. And I, when I came to you, brothers, did not come proclaiming to you the testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom. For I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and much trembling, and my speech and my message were not in plausible words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. That's my prayer this morning, that the Spirit of God would move in your hearts as you hear these verses, different things, that the Spirit would move and work. And you might hear something that I didn't even say. That's good. That's fine. That's great. I want you to hear from the Lord. That is my prayer. In my weakness, that you hear the Lord. Look past me and hear the Lord. Yet among the mature, we do impart, this is verse 6, wisdom, we do impart wisdom, although it is not a wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age who are doomed to pass away. But we impart a secret and hidden wisdom of God, which God decreed before the ages for our glory. None of the rulers of this age understood this, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined, what God has prepared for those who love him. These things God has revealed to us through the Spirit, for the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. For who knows a person's thoughts, except the spirit of that person which is in him? So also no one comprehends the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might understand the things freely given us by God. And we impart this in words, not taught by human wisdom, but taught by the Spirit, interpreting spiritual truths to those who are spiritual. The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. The spiritual person judges all things, but is himself to be judged by no one. For who has understood the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. The things that stood out to me in verse 6 through 9, it's not a wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age. We impart a secret and hidden wisdom of God, which God decreed before the ages for our glory. And it's talking about, verse 8, if the rulers of this age understood it, they wouldn't have crucified the Lord. It's talking about the gospel and the coming of the kingdom, and the God's kingdom is present now. It's here. The rulers of this world would not have allowed that at all if they would have understood that. But the good news is the kingdom is here. And that is a secret and hidden wisdom. The natural man can't understand that. It's the upside down kingdom. We can know facts about it, but I'm still learning more and more truth about what the upside down kingdom looks like. It is so counter to the natural man's way of thinking. We die in Christ in order to live. We die in order to live. We die in order to live. It's the great paradox of Christianity, of true faith. Now, and it's revealed through the Spirit. Going on down, verse 13. And we impart this in words not taught by human wisdom. Let me see here. Where am I? No, 14. The natural person does not accept these things. And that's the whole thing. That's where the natural man thinks in the separation worldview. And is controlled by fear. Therefore, you cannot discern or receive the things of the Lord. Under that system, when you think like that, you can't discern the things of the Lord. It's not receivable that way. God is not going to speak in agreement with the lie. That's the way I want to say it. He's not going to speak in agreement with the lie. The whole thing built on lie. Truth. The truth sets us free. And he's going to speak in the truth. And if we want to hear him, we have to be willing and open to hearing the truth. And it takes, we'll get there, what it's going to take here in just a little bit. So we have to be open to receiving. Now I want to go to, well, first of all, 1 John 4, perfect love casts out fear, right? And as Christ and his Spirit fill us, and we are filled with his love, that's how we overcome that fear. And that fear does not control us. And we're able to make the connection worldview, motivate every decision, every choice motivated by love. And when we're operating there, then fear has no grip on us, and we're able to overcome. I had to think about this, consider the children, consider us when we were children. Just remember, I know for some of us that was longer ago than for others. But I do remember things like games you played, running around. We had horses, so we like to do things. I like to do things. I don't know how much my siblings liked it or not, but we did it. Of taking baler twine and making these harnesses that were meaningless except for a bunch of cords and straps hanging on you so that it looked like you had a harness on. And then we would, then you drive them and to pull a wagon or do whatever. And we didn't have harnesses. We just found baler twine and made them. Like the creativity, that's what I want to point out. There's a certain creativity. We weren't intimidated. Well, we don't have that, so I guess we can't do that, right? Our creative minds got busy figuring out a way. And that's when fear is controlling us, we can't do that. You can't live out of the creative part of your mind. Your imagination, your creative side of your brain, you can't do that when you're controlled by fear. It shuts us down. We can't innovate. We can't iterate. It shuts that part of us down. And as children, naturally, it doesn't cross our minds about, well, we can't do that. I mean, maybe it does sometimes. But you get the idea, right? A much more creative, much more just suddenly we're just doing it, right? We just figured out a way and we just did it. Of course, there were limitations, but you get, it's not a perfect analogy, but you get what I'm getting at. And the whole thing of consider the children, become childlike, those are the ways. Those are the ways. Some of the ways that Jesus might have meant. Be free. If you're free, the creative can flow and we can come up with ideas much better. We can innovate. We can work together to find solutions where we thought there were none. There is enough. In the kingdom, there is enough. There is abundance. And so we just don't, maybe if we think we don't have it, we just don't know yet where it's going to come from or how we're going to tie it together or exactly how we're going to solve this problem, but there's a solution to the problem. And if we don't believe that, then we're believing in scarcity. And we're back in that separation worldview. There is a way. It might be hard. It might take years. It might take a lot of creativity. It may take a lot of innovation. It may take multiple steps. I don't know, but there will be a way. There's a way. There is enough and there's a way. And all of us have at least some examples in our lives where something looked big to us and then we got through it. Oh, and it wasn't so bad once we were on the back side of it. There was a way. Once we get there, now okay, well, I have this choice and this choice. And I don't know, somehow things that looked bad, but then once we're through it, it wasn't so bad. Or there was a solution. Or something came that I didn't anticipate. I didn't know. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but suddenly there was an answer. Now, there are other times we just simply avoid the whole thing altogether because, well, we can't see it. It's not obvious. It's not realistic. So just out it goes. And we shut it down. It looks impossible, so we just don't try. Another way that you might think of it is if there's a big trip or something, as adults, we see all the preparation and the work and what all it's going to take, whatever. But if you tell the child that we're going somewhere, exciting, whatever, never a doubt crosses their mind. This is going to be totally fine. Like, we're going. End of analysis. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pack all the things? Are we going to remember everything? What checklist should we have? Child doesn't. Now, you do need to count the costs and be prepared, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't daunt them. So that may be another example where the childlike thing. Let's go to Matthew 5, and this is where I'm going to finish up. In Matthew 5, the Beatitudes, and this is something where I'm seeing them a little differently, or at least considering them in a different way than I ever have. To be really honest with you, in some ways, I think I tended to view the Beatitudes as Jesus' way of updating the Ten Commandments, sort of. So these were the old commandments, and yes, the law, like, they apply in an underlying sort of way, but like Jesus, this is the new, and like, okay, now this is like your new commandments, kind of like a checklist. Like, you should be poor in spirit. You should be merciful. You should mourn. You should, hunger and thirst. You should do all these things. And I know enough to know that it's not should. But at the same time, first of all, the fruit comes from the filling. You can't manufacture fruit. Fruit is a result of something that's already happened inside you, and the fruit comes out. And what we can do is abide in Christ and be filled, and the right fruit will come out. Now, so that aside, here's how I've been considering this. What if the Beatitudes, what if there's a progression in there? Instead of 9 or whatever individual things, Beatitudes, whatever things to check off, am I like this, am I like this, am I like this, am I like this? Instead of that, what if this is a progression? What if this is a way, as we abide in Christ, to position ourselves to be open, surrendered, and able to be filled? So it starts in verse 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Poor in spirit. Full surrender is what I'm thinking. Like an emptying of self, my way, and a surrendering, a full surrender, letting go. It's all yours, Lord. It's all yours. I just want what you have for me and more of you to receive. Okay? So there we start. We emptying of self and receiving what the Lord wants to. The poor in spirit. Putting myself in a position to where I can receive. Blessed are those who mourn. And this could potentially tie into things that we are called to in life, like some of our purpose in life, our identity. What are the things that as you're living in this world, there are things that the world needs from you. God put you here for a reason. What are those things that grip you? What are those things that you feel passionate about? What are those things that cause you to mourn this broken world in a way that the Lord would mourn? Like, what is it? Human trafficking? Is it for those who are, I'm thinking of my father-in-law, prison ministry, or those who are stuck behind bars and need someone to come to them because they can't come to us? Or is it the sick? Is it healing? What do you see that grips you and like tugs at you and like maybe you feel called to do something about that? It's something you're passionate about, you care about. And feel the weight of that. And you mourn with God in that the world is broken in that way. And in whatever way it might be, it needs to be fixed or there's a need there. And then, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And meekness is not Say it louder. Meekness is not?
Weakness.
Exactly. Meekness is not weakness. One way to picture this is like a horse has a lot of raw power, but it's only useful when it's harnessed. And that's meekness. Moses was meek, and most of the time his strength was, after the 80 years in the desert, most of the time his strength was harnessed. There was that time when he hit the rock, when he wasn't supposed to hit the rock. But Moses he's called the meekest man, I think, in the Bible. Jesus was meek, and he's our perfect example. He could have called 10,000 angels. He could have said the word, and it would have been done. But there was a mission to be accomplished, and that strength stayed under control to the mission and the purpose and what the Lord was calling him to. So, letting the Spirit and God control me. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So you could even possibly tie this back to verse 4, where the thing that grips you, the thing that you mourn for, maybe it could tie to that, but hungering and thirsting for righteousness, to see things right, and as we have that hunger, they shall be satisfied. And it just keeps building. Those that are merciful, understanding our own weaknesses and the mercy we've been shown, those that are merciful, they'll receive mercy. It's the way it works in the kingdom. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. It's, again, that emptying and just soul focus, pure in heart. Not distracted in 500 ways or whatever, but it's pure in heart. The Lord, and hearing from Him and responding to that, walking with Him. Soul in focus in that sense. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And as we walk with the Lord, and I believe this in words, but do I believe it in actions? That's where the tests come, right? As we walk with the Lord, and as we allow Him to speak into our lives, and as we hear and respond, the world will see solutions that work. Freedom, joy, peace, love, places of things where relationships and community are prospering, and there is hope, and there is peace. Again, peace and like when you can take a group of people with all their differences, and they are working together in harmony and love, and there's a vibrancy to that, and they're allowing their different gifts to where I am weak, someone else is filling the gaps, and I'm not too proud to let them, and I own those weaknesses and let someone else come alongside me and shore me up, and we complement each other, and in the gifts in Ephesians or wherever, think of like a song of deference, where, if you picture it in music, if there's a part of the song where one instrument's being highlighted, but then there's another where that one takes the background and another one comes to the forefront, and different voices or whatever, but the good songs, there's good harmony and they work together. They're not working against each other. If the musicians were all working against each other, you just have a cacophony and just a disaster. So the whole thing of working together with each other is like a song of deference in that sense, where when it's my turn, I step up, but then it's not an ego thing. I step back and let someone else take their spot, and we work together. And we work together. And so peacemakers, and it literally means peace, but I think you can even, beyond that, like solutions that bring life in any given situation. And the Lord will give us those things when we need them. The key is, Can we, in the moment, when we're facing that decision, have the humility to ask the Lord the direct question, Lord, what do I do here? And if I'm not hearing from him, maybe I need to ask, what's blocking that? Is there a fear that's blocking that? Because depending what the Lord says, I'm just not going to be willing to do it. If that's the case, I'm not going to hear. But if I'm willing to do whatever he says, and then when he says it, I have to do it. I'll give you, I don't have a good personal one, so you can't, I don't know. Jamie Winship says you can't give what you don't have, so maybe that's my confession. But I'm going to share a story of his where a few years into his police officer career, which he loved, and that was his calling, and that's what he wanted to do. A few years in, he and another officer are called out on a case where there is a person in a Santa suit was seen, stole something from a house, and was last seen exiting the house in an upstairs window and down a lattice and into a wooded park area. And so they're called to this thing, and they're supposed to go find this bad Santa. And as the other officer on the radio says, hey, I'm going to come to the south side of the park, and I'm going to start working from that side. And if you come from the north end, we'll kind of get a little bit of a perimeter established here, and maybe we can, between the two of us, kind of contain this guy to this area and find him. And so Jamie pulls up on the north end or wherever it was, and he's up on a higher and he can kind of oversee this thing, and immediately he spots this guy in red. I mean, it's wintertime, like it's Christmas Eve. And so finding the guy was no problem. There he is. But very quickly he sees that the other officer and this guy are on a collision course, and they can't see each other. But they're bound, he's seeing that they're going to meet. And wherever they're coming, like they're going to have a surprise meeting here very shortly. So he's clamoring to get down there. And anyway, they tangle, and then he comes and helps, and this guy is big. That was the other part of it. When he see this imminent collision that was coming, this guy was quite a bit bigger than the other officer was, and so he was worried. And it was like a rodeo thing going off or whatever. And anyway, so they get the guy, and they get him in the car. And after some wrestling, the guy finally gives up, and to get him in the car was a problem, not because he fought them, but because he about didn't fit. But they finally got him turned sideways and wedged in the back seat. And now he calls in, I'm bringing one person in, and he's on his way in. And then and this guy starts giving him a sob story, because every one of these has one. Like, I didn't mean to hurt that officer. I didn't mean to, I just wanted to get my wife a Christmas present, and they were in a tight spot, and he didn't mean to. Yeah, everybody repents after they get caught. That's what James was like, I don't have time for that. He didn't even respond to it. But then the Lord said, let him go. And he's like, what? And so he's like, that can't be the Lord. Whatever. He keeps going, let him go. And then he starts grappling with it, and verses come to mind, and it's Christmas Eve, and he's tormented by this whole thing. He pulls in a parking lot, and he's there pounding the steering wheel, and the guy's like, what's wrong? What are you doing? And because he's like, is this guy going crazy or what? And he's like, I'm talking to the Lord. And anyway, but the Lord eventually is like, let him go. And he's like, so the fear loop that we go in when we face these moments, and he does so good, and it's in his new book, War on Worldviews. That's where I got it from. And the fear loop, this is what I wanted to bring, because this is what tends to happen to us. When we face the crisis, first of all, if I let him go, and there's just cause for the arrest, plus resisting an officer and all that stuff, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get fired. There were 3 reasons why an officer could de-arrest someone they had arrested. And none of those definitions fit very good for this guy. And Christmas Eve, being Christmas Eve, was not one of them. And so he goes into this mental loop, like, I'm going to get fired, and all the other officers are not going to like me, and they're going to shun me, and it's not going to. But the reason number 3 is it's not going to matter because I'm going to get fired, and then this and this and this, but it's not going to matter because I'm going to get fired, and this and this and this, but it's not going to matter because I'm going to get fired. Every other reason is I'm going to get fired, and his career as a police officer is going to be over, which was his lifelong dream. And so what does he do? Finally, he doesn't want to. He doesn't do it because he wants to. He doesn't even understand it or why. But the Lord has many times spoken to him about how to handle cases, so much so that it got him, like, he has a reputation as a good officer, and he's won Officer of the Year, and he's all these promoted and all these things. But he lets him go. And this guy is just thanking him. And whenever he says, just get away from me, I don't want nothing to do with you. I'm not doing this because I'm just go. And he doesn't tell the guy, but it's probably going to cost me my job, whatever. So he goes, the guy goes, and he comes in, and he goes into his supervisor, and he explains it to him. And he says, and he directs him, he laughs at him and directs him to the captain. And he tells the captain, and the captain says, well, you have earned my respect with your work in the past. I'm not going to fire you, but I'm going to suspend you, like, from going out on the street. And he's appointed to 2 weeks solid of desk duty, manning the front desk. And to give this time, he said, I'm going to suspend my Christmas Eve disbelief, or whatever he said. This whole thing, he said, I'm going to suspend my disbelief for 2 weeks, and we'll give this some time. I'm going to give you 2 weeks to see how this works out. Because if this guy goes out now and does something else, they could get sued, whatever. He just let a criminal back out on the street. And so now he's got 2 weeks. And it was a relief in a sense initially, but then it was 2 weeks of just suspense. Is anything going to happen? Is anything going to happen? Long story short, this guy ends up leading them. The way the next step happens, he calls in, wants to talk to Jamie, and he thanks him so much again. Don't bother. I'm about losing my job, but just whatever. Maybe you could write a letter or something to. His wife was a graduate student. That's part of why they didn't have money and all this. Maybe she could help you write a letter. I don't know, but anything. If there's something like that you could do to help, that'd be great. But anyway, he didn't really want to talk to him still. But this guy is just thanking him, and he says, but he ends up telling him, if you guys can have a car at this intersection on such and such a night at 12 o'clock, there's going to be a Porsche 911 going to drive through that intersection at this time, whatever. And when he comes through, pull him over and check the trunk. And he gives him this tip. And so, Jamie can't go out on the street. He's been assigned to desk duty. But he asks the Lord what to do, and the Lord tells him. And so he gets his friend, he gets an idea, gets his friend, another officer who he had a good relationship with, and he agrees that he'll go out and they'll monitor this and do it, whatever. And I think Jamie was allowed to go with him. He told the captain, and the captain allowed him to go, but he had to go with the other guy. And they arranged the whole thing, and they went out and they sat there. And it went 12:30. It went, I don't know, was it 1 o'clock? I forget how long it went, but it went past the 12 o'clock. And they're Jamie's despairing, and this whole thing's a flop and whatever. And just about the time they were ready to give up and leave, lo and behold, here comes the Porsche. And they pull the guy over, and he ends up being a very wanted for multiple counts of whatever. And anyway, I don't remember, was it drugs, whatever, but they got weapons, they had all kinds of wanted charges on this guy, and then there was stuff in the car too, like whatever. And it leads to a big case and a breakthrough in something. And then eventually the guy leads him to another house where it's basically like a Kmart of stolen goods. Kmart was still a thing back then, apparently. And so and he's calling Jamie brother, and anyway, it totally flips like this whole thing, and like they get like these, and these were the kind of results that they got that got him on the State Department's radar, and they wanted to talk to him, and the CIA, and they offered him, as a result of his track record of getting results, and they wanted to talk to him, and they offered him, after an interview in a pub, that he had to show up like right now, and this guy offers it. He said what he didn't like his methods, of course, but he likes his results, and they end up offering him, a job offer that was like 3 times the salary that what he was getting now. Now he didn't end up taking it, but they ended up doing it because that's when they ended up going to the Middle East, and it was better to do it not under the state and all of that. But that's a long story. The point is, when he was willing to put his career on the line, the thing that meant the most to him, and it just was absolutely crazy to obey, but then the creativity and the possibilities and the solutions that came out of that, and the journey that set their family on and completely changed their lives, even like